My question is about Ukraine loan, about 90 billion euros, which Europe is preparing for Ukraine. As I've heard, on Wednesday, the European Commission is going to present some legislative proposal on this loan, and I would like to ask some details. What will be the proposal? For example, maybe you know of course you know the details, which part will be dedicated to the military support, which part for budgetary support, and as I've heard, there is a discussion about EU and non-EU weapons and military equipment for Ukraine. Also, on this, what kind of discussion, which proportion are you planning? So everything is welcome. Yeah, thank you so much.
Let's see, because indeed we had announced to you that the follow-up to the European Council, to the decision of the EU borrowing of 90 billion euro as a delivery on the commitment to meet Ukraine's financial needs for 26 and 27, would be done in two steps procedurally. We immediately delivered on the first step a couple of days after the European Council with the letter and the request for enhanced cooperation on this. And now we have indeed a second legal step that is due, and it's worth recalling what the legal step is. But I will certainly not go into what will be the details of the proposal, because you said it well. Yes, we had said January, so we expect to have it adopted very soon. But just to remind what is the context and what such a proposal is about in general, I'd ask Balázs to remind us of those elements.
Indeed. Thank you, and Happy New Year to all of you. This is my first appearance on the podium this year. Now, what exactly happened in the area? If you go back to October, November last year, we made a commitment that we are going to make an important contribution to the financial needs, to the financial gap that will exist in Ukraine in 2026 and 2027. So that was very clear. Then there came time to the European Council where it was agreed how exactly this will be done. There were different options looked at, and the solution chosen was to essentially go for joint borrowing against the headroom. Now, the next milestone is to get ourselves ready to be able actually to disburse the funds to Ukraine, to start disbursing the funds. And then we have a bit of homework to do in that regard. So we have to put forward a certain number of legislative acts in due course, rather soon, I would believe, so that we are in a position to start disbursing early in the early part of the second quarter of this year. So indeed, you might expect some legislative acts proposed by the Commission in the near future. And when it comes to the distribution of funds between budget support and support for defense purposes, I think you will also find the answer once the proposals are put forward. And the same answer would be, I would answer in the same way when it comes to the acquisition of future military equipment.
Thank you, Balázs, for reminding us of what is now at stake. Any more questions to Balázs? Yes, please.
Hello, so I have one question for Balázs and another related question to Eva. Can you give me an update, please, Balázs, about how is it going with the internal scrutiny group about the alleged spy ring that operated among the Hungarian permanent representation?
Yes, I can give you a more of a reminder rather than an update, given that there is not a significant significant amount of information that I could add to what I've said before. Last year, we announced that we looked at the allegations and we came to the conclusion very quickly that we will be setting up an internal group which is looking into the circumstances of these allegations. This group has been set up. It started its work, and this work is ongoing, and because of the ongoing nature of this work, I will not be able to provide any further comment at this point in time.
Thank you. Before moving on with your question to Eva, anything else to Balázs? I have a number of colleagues putting the hands up online. Is any of it for Balázs? Two hands are still up, so let's see. Julia Tar.
No,
it's
yes.
not. It is. Okay, we'll get back to you. Good, then we can move on. Yes, Razia.
Thank you. Razia Akoch, AFP News Agency. I have a question for Olaf about Chinese electric vehicles. There's a guidance document that's been published, and the Chinese Commerce Ministry has issued a statement, but I really, maybe because it's Monday or whatever, I just want to understand, does this guidance document mean that the European Commission and China have reached an agreement on this alternative that these automakers can have instead of, so price undertakings instead of tariffs? And so am I right to understand that the European Commission and Beijing have reached an agreement? Thank you.
Thank you for your question, Razia. So the document we have published is intended to provide guidance to Chinese exporters who may be considering submitting price undertaking offers for exports of battery electric vehicles to the EU, which are currently subject to countervailing duties. So let me be very clear, this document is providing guidance, nothing more. I remind you that at the beginning of December last, the Commission initiated an interim review investigation to examine a price undertaking offer, and therefore we felt that the time was now ripe to issue this additional guidance in order that further undertaking offers, should they come, have a very clear framework within which they must be constructed. So, to repeat, this is a guidance document, nothing more. We have been engaging with the Chinese Ministry of Commerce on this question. We will continue to do so.
Thank you. Carol. I guess for Olaf.
Yeah, Carl Demir for Les Echos. It's a follow-up. So can you please elaborate on what you advise the Chinese exporters to do, like how they should structure their undertaking offers? How can you control afterwards that they are actually implementing the undertaking offers that they made? And do you expect in return that the Chinese authorities could cancel the duties that they have imposed on other EU products in the past?
Thank you for your questions, Carl. So, first of all, I'm not going to go into the full details of the very detailed technical guidance we've provided to the Chinese Commerce Ministry from this podium. This isn't the place to do it. I'm happy to discuss that with you afterwards and take any detailed questions as necessary. But just to be clear, we have said from the start, as the European Commission, as the investigative authority in this case, that we're willing to look at alternatives to the anti-subsidy duties we put in place. I remind you that we put those duties in place because after a painstakingly detailed investigation, we found that Chinese battery electric vehicles for export to the EU were availing of a range of unfair and, according to WTO law, illegal subsidies. Therefore, we concluded our investigation. We placed the subsidies to restore the level playing field, nothing more. That's what we're looking for here, fairness and a level playing field. The European market is open to electric vehicles from all around the world, provided that they have come here according to that level playing field. So, again, at the beginning of December last, we received one offer from a company on one particular model for a price undertaking. We're looking at that now. We're willing to look at others, as we have said all along. The document we have provided today provides guidance on how that should happen, but to summarise what that guidance means, and you've heard me say this before, it's nothing new, it must adequately address the unfair competitive advantage conferred on those electric vehicles from China being exported to the EU, and it must show that that can be done in a workable way. If those conditions are met, then we can look at price undertakings in a serious way. Oh, and to answer your final question, I'm not going to get into speculation about other things. We're talking about this specific issue. We've issued specific guidance, and that's all this is.
Thank you, Olaf. Other questions to Olaf? Oui, vas-y.
Oui, bonjour, Adrien de Canon.
Good morning. I have a question regarding Mercosur. France has concerns that it could be applied provisionally before being ratified by the European Parliament. I would like to know if it's possible that it could be ratified, but it could be applied before ratification. Is that not a democratic problem if that was to be the case? Thank you for that question. Firstly, let's remind ourselves that our member states adopted a decision last week and this decision gives the possibility to the Commission to sign this treaty. President von der Leyen is going to go to Paraguay this Saturday to sign this deal. The European Parliament will have the possibility to vote on this, and the European Parliament decides the timing for this. Here in the Commission, we are convinced that this deal is very, very strong, that it's very much essential for our European interests in terms of economics, geopolitical, diplomatic dealings. And we are very happy that our member states agree. So, in the European Parliament, there will be a vote. The time frame will be decided by the Parliament. In the Commission, our sole focus at the moment is to sign the deal. And we are continuing to work with MEPs and engage with them because we feel we have a deal on the table that all MEPs could support with full confidence. So we are continuing to work with MEPs on this, and we are convinced that at the end of this, there's going to be a strong deal on the table that we can all support and that we can adopt.
Oui, Adrien,
Adrian, a follow-up question. You did not at all answer my question. Can this treaty be applied, can this deal be applied before ratification in the Parliament? Olaf was clear. What we want is the most support possible for this agreement, this historic agreement. We have carried out a great deal of intense work with member states, and we are continuing with this intense work with the European Parliament. The idea is to have the necessary majority in the European Parliament in order for us to be able to have the greatest support possible for this agreement. This is not just a detail in terms of European trade. This is major, and it will allow for integration of a market zone in the world. This is a very big block we are dealing with. So this is very important. We have to consider the geopolitical context that we find ourselves in also. This is more than just a trade agreement. Yes, Giovanni.
Hi, and happy New Year, by the way. Sorry if I insist, but you are the Commission, and here there is a technical question you are still not answering. It is very clear that you wish that broad support by the European Parliament. That's the political message, and that's very clear, and we got it. The question is it possible to apply this agreement already before the European Parliament has voted or not? That's a very simple question. So we understand what your political message is, but please give us this technical answer. Thank you very much.
Many things are possible, but we're not there yet. Anything more that you want to say, Olaf?
To give a technical answer to your technical question, the treaty does allow for this possibility, yes.
Good. Thank you. Go ahead.
Hello, Thomas Mann-Nielsen at Euractiv. I'm sorry, I want to go back to the EV case, if that's okay. I just have 3 questions about it. The first is why has it taken so long for the Commission to issue this guidance? I mean, as you said, the Commission and China have been discussing this price undertaking idea for more than a year. Why are you providing the guidance now? Also, the Chinese Commerce Ministry and the China Chamber of Commerce in the EU have been very positive about this move by the Commission to provide this guidance. The signs are very encouraging. Do you think perhaps their positive reaction to this is a bit premature? They seem to be suggesting, they seem to expect that the tariffs on Chinese exports, on Chinese electric vehicle exports, will eventually be removed. That certainly seems to be implied by the statement both by the Chinese Commerce Ministry and the China Chamber of Commerce, the EU. And also, the timing is a little bit suspicious. We've seen over the last week, US threats to invade Greenland, and now we see this, this major point of friction between China and the EU, and we see the EU saying, "Hey, maybe you can avoid these tariffs if you follow these rules." So, is the timing a coincidence? Thank you very much.
Thank you for your question, Tom. That was a very exciting story you presented to us all. But the fact of the matter is, I already answered all the questions you have asked. We've issued this guidance because in December, the first meaningful offer of a price undertaking came. So we offered the guidance now because that wasn't the case before. So we have received a first offer of an undertaking, and it's, to be clear, it's on one model, so it's quite a narrow section of the overall range of battery electric vehicle exports from China to the EU. But nonetheless, it is a first meaningful undertaking offer we have received. So that is positive, absolutely. Now we're looking at that, as I said. We're analysing it to assess its merits. In parallel, we've taken the decision to issue this more detailed additional guidance in the event that more offers will come. So far they have not. If they come, we'll be happy to look at them. We'll be happy to assess them in detail. And if they tick the boxes that I mentioned in my previous reply, then yes, they could potentially replace the anti-subsidy duties we have put in place following our detailed and fact-based investigation. But let's just all calm down a bit. It's guidance at this stage, nothing more.
A follow-up to the several questions.
No, sorry, so just on the timing, but before this offer was made in December, China and the EU were discussing the possibility of price undertakings for about a year or so before this. So my question is, why did you wait for the first offer before issuing the guidance? Wouldn't it have been more helpful to issue the guidance before you get the offer? So, can you explain a little bit more about the timing? I'm still puzzled. Thanks.
Thank you for your suggestions, Tom. I will be sure to pass them on to our technical experts for future consideration. I think I've answered all your questions in detail and in full, and I have nothing more to say.
Thank you. Yes, please go ahead.
There we go. Gina Smilik from the New York Times. Olaf, I was wondering if you could give us a little bit of guidance. Obviously, as you mentioned, you've got the first offer back in December for the VW Cupra. Do you know what timeline we're looking at for that decision? When could we potentially see this guidance move into something more actionable? Like, when might a decision come?
Thanks for your question. I can't be prescriptive at this stage about when our assessment will be done. It will take as long as it takes. Sorry, I can't be more clear.
Okay. Other questions to Olaf? No. Then we can change subject. I think we're going to Foreign Affairs with Noureddin.
I have two questions on Yemen and Palestine. Now, towards the end of the year and in the start of the year, there was an attempted coup in Yemen. And that could have disrupted the territorial integrity of the country. Now, there's been a lot of action going on the ground, on the Yemeni side, the Saudi side also. I wanted to know what the European Union's stance is with regard to these cessation attempts in southern Yemen. There are regional actors involved, more than one. They're found in southern Yemen, Somaliland, South Sudan also. Second question on this point, there's political dialogue bringing together most parties. In Yemen, and those talks are expected to start in Riyadh in the coming days. Are there expectations on the European side with regard to these talks? I can imagine that European diplomats are watching very closely. I'm wondering, are there any particular expectations in that regard? Secondly, Anwar, the EU, could it play a role when it comes to persuasion? And this given the role of the regional actors and what they're doing in the area. The EU has strategic relations with some of them. So could the EU play a role when it comes to persuading actors and to avoid the changes in the region that could give rise to negative issues? I do have a second question on Gaza. The peace board has been put together apparently, and it will be presided over by a Bulgarian diplomat, Mladinov. That diplomat was chosen by the US administration. Do you have any news or updates as regards the European participation on that Gaza peace board? What can you tell us about the work of that board and what the EU is doing in that area? Thank you. So two very different questions. Anwar, please. Thank you, Nuruddin. I'll start with Yemen. So we are fully participating diplomatically when it comes to dealing with the actors on the ground. Of course, we're following very closely the situation on the ground, and we are, of course, concerned with regard to the situation in the south of Yemen. We continue to call for de-escalation and dialogue, and we hail the initiatives that are leading to that end. It's important to go back to the political path that would lead to stability and prosperity in Yemen. Against that backdrop, the EU is in favour of a strengthening of the UN role here. I'd reiterate our position when it comes to the unity, sovereignty and independence of Yemen, as well as its territorial integrity. The EU fully supports the Yemen's government and presidential council. We call on all actors in Yemen to positively contribute to this sovereignty and territorial integrity in order to cooperate in a constructive fashion against the backdrop of international law and national law, respecting those laws. Now, turning to the peace board, you're referring to press reports. I'm not going to enter into speculation through that prism, and that's because we're still awaiting the announcement on the part of the US with regard to the peace board. When it comes to the nomination of the peace board and its executive committee, will be an important step towards implementing the UN Security Council resolution 2803, as well as the global plan seeking to put an end to the conflict in Gaza. Let's remember that the Peace Board will supervise the transitional administration, as well as the Palestinian Technical Committee that will have responsibility for public service operations in Gaza. Those are very important tasks. The EU will support work towards those tasks and contribute to them.
Okay, merci. Yes, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Mohsen Behzad Karimi, and I'm Iranian journalist. Today I'm here independent capacity. I have a few questions, actually two. From the very same tribune for years we heard that EU believes in diplomacy with Tehran, and EU prefer to keep the diplomatic channels open because we believe in negotiation. And we saw where we ended. The deal broke and the war happened at the end. Today a massacre is going on in Iran. Hundreds reported, if not thousands, are killed on the street of Tehran, on the streets of Iran, even small cities, in the absence of internet and method of communication. Me, myself, for the past few days, I was not able to contact my family in Iran, and the report and footage coming out is horrendous. What beyond tweeting and calling and diplomacy is EU prepared to do right now, a decisive action? What EU is prepared to do? Is it EU prepared to put IRGC finally on a terrorist organization list? Because there is no anymore the argument of Mr. Borrell in picture. IRGC already been declared terrorist organization in some countries. Is EU prepared to take a decisive action? This is the first question. The second question, we heard the demand of Iranian people from the street of Tehran. They calling the return of Reza Pahlavi, the former son of Shah. Is EU prepared to engage, as America does right now, engage with Reza Pahlavi for a democratic transition in Iran? Are we going to see any major changes in EU approach toward Iranian beyond just a slogan? Or are we going to lose again as a European, as we lost in Ukraine, in Venezuela, possibly in Greenland, and we're going to lose the future collaboration and trade with Iran because we are deciding not to stand on the right side of the history? Thank you very much.
Thank you, and welcome to our press room. And before giving the floor to Anwar, first of all, let me express our solidarity with the extremely brave citizens in Iran, women, men, young people who are protesting for their freedom. They have all our support and our solidarity because they are putting their lives at risk, as we've been seeing, and this is absolutely unacceptable, that people who are demonstrating peacefully for their freedom are being arrested and are being killed. This is absolutely unacceptable, and the President von der Leyen, did put out her thoughts about this very recently, calling for the immediate release of all imprisoned demonstrators, calling for the restoration of the full internet access, because obviously the fact that there's no internet access is meant to also make it more difficult for all these peaceful demonstrators to call and carry out their right of demonstrating and calling for action. Now, in terms of what can be done, what is being considered, and here, Anwar, I'd like to give you the floor to speak about that. There has been also already clear positioning on this on our side. And also from the President, from President von der Leyen, we are looking into, indeed, further sanctions. But Anwar, you have more on this.
Thank you for your questions. I will be unpacking different angles that you have raised to give you a full answer, starting with our policy vis-à-vis Iran that you have been referring to. Our policy approach vis-à-vis Iran has always been of critical engagement. What does that mean? It means critical where necessary and ready to engage when our interests align. So that's one. Now, in terms of the protests, we do stand in full solidarity with the Iranian people, and we condemn the use of force against demonstrators. We are appalled by the reports of casualties. In terms of the sanctions that you have raised, we have a dedicated legal framework that is targeting perpetrators of serious human rights violations and abuses in Iran, under which a number of entities and individuals have been added over the years. So this is already in place. We stand ready to propose new more severe sanctions following the violent crackdown on protesters. This is a decision for member states to take unanimously in the Council. Now, specifically on IRGC that you have been raising, I will now give a bit of a lay of the land because this is quite technical and I'm sure that different colleagues have also questions on the matter. The EU has already listed the IRGC in its entirety under the Iran weapons of mass destruction sanctions regime. What does that mean? It means that the IRGC is already under an asset freeze in the EU and a prohibition to make funds and economic resources available. In addition, so this comes on top, the EU has also listed, as said, individuals and entities of the IRGC with regard to 1, human rights violations in Iran, 2, their responsibilities in Iran's nuclear and ballistic missile program, and 3, the support to Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine. Now, looking at the possible terrorist listing of IRGC, also known as the EU terrorist lists, and for those with a legal background, a common position 931. The discussion among member states has been ongoing under confidential rules as per established procedure, and I will not be able to go into details in that regard, but as per general rules in terms of sanctions that are presiding the sanctions regime in the EU, such listing would have to be decided by member states unanimously.
Thank you for unpacking it, Anwar, and we move on. Still with Anwar, I suppose.
Bonjour, Camille Con.
Good afternoon from Agence France Presse.
Donald Trump threatened over the weekend to intervene militarily in Iran over the crackdown of the protests. Would you support such a military intervention? Thanks.
Pas de commentaires sur des scénarios hypothétiques.
No comments on hypothetical scenarios.
Suniva en ligne.
Now, for those of you online, are there any questions on Iran? Yes, thank you for my question. Anwar, would you have some more information on Kaya Kallas's comments in Politico? She said she's open to additional sanctions for Iran. Can you confirm that this proposal was made in the 29th of January Foreign Affairs Council? Is this for a violation of human rights and for certain individuals in power in Iran? Is that the reason for these potential sanctions? I think that there was a question in the room about establishing contact, Reza Pahlavi, and could you give more information about that contact if it did take place? Thank you for your questions. I'm going to start with your last one. It's up to the Iranian people who represents them. That's all I have to say on that matter. Can you please repeat, because I think a colleague didn't hear.
Okay, good.
Okay,
Just wanted to make sure you got it.
Hold on for the follow-up, just so I make sure that Suniva gets the answers to the questions that she has asked, which I'm afraid I already forgot.
It was the contact with the Crown Prince in exile.
Yes, indeed. On that end, my previous answer actually does apply, that it is for the Iranian people to decide who is their representative. Suniva, je pense que tu as posé la question.
Suniva, I think you asked the question in French on sanctions. The High Representative did announce that we are open to proposing further new sanctions, more severe sanctions, based on the oppression that has been exercised in Iran This is a decision that member states need to take in a unanimous fashion, like all European Union sanctions. Now, if I remember correctly, you mentioned Foreign Affairs Council. The next Foreign Affairs Council will take place on the 29th of January. And there will be an extraordinary meeting on Iran also. The High Representative does remain constantly in contact with her interlocutors in the European Union on this matter, and there's also regular contact with the Iranian authorities, with our EU body based in Tehran, and this is how we are proceeding, and that's what I wanted to state. Are there any other questions on Iran? Jorge.
Yes, hello, Anwar. Two questions. On the sanctions, can you confirm if you're looking exclusively to designations, as you said right now, or are you looking into any economic measure that could also be applied and designed by the Commission? And second, when you spoke about the Revolutionary Guard and its possible designation as a terrorist organization, I understand that the discussions are confidential and they've been going on for a while, as we all know. But what is your position, the position of the European Commission? Do you think this is the right moment to move ahead with the designation of the Revolutionary Guard as a terrorist organization? Yes or no? Thank you.
Thanks, Jorge. I think that the past 10 minutes have shown that it's more complicated than a yes or no, and that it's subjected to the unanimity of the member states. Actually, that's it.
Stefan.
Yes, thank you. On the same issue, but what would it change concretely? You said that the Revolutionary Guard are already on the sanctions, on the certain sanctions. What would this change if they are put on this list for terrorist organizations? And if you could say something about the legal requirements, I think there is a problem. Legal requirements for an organization to be put on this list. What's the obstacle there? Thank you.
Thank you, Stefan. I think we are happy to give background briefings also on technicalities and the legal implications if there is substantial interest from the press room. In terms of our readiness to propose new sanctions, at this stage I cannot enter into the specificities at this stage, but again, as you know, proposals, once they're made, then it's for the member states to decide as per the rule of unanimity. So this is clear-cut in terms of directions of travel. But about the scope, I will not here elaborate from this podium. As you can imagine, that this is quite a sensitive issue.
There, please. Still on Iran. Behind you, Nuruddin, to give the possibility to another colleague to ask a question.
Yes, hello, Federica Bianchi with L'Espresso. I'm so sorry. I've been following very carefully everything you've said so far and the limits of what you can say and not say, but I'm not clear on two things. One, you said it's up to the Iranian people to choose their leaders, and that's something standard, and of course. But why can't you say if you're in touch with some of the exiled Iranians, either with the previous regime or other exiled, they're constantly in Brussels every year. I mean, it's not that they're not already a presence here. So just to know if you're talking to them, not if you're agreeing with them, for instance. And then secondly, in terms of sanctions, it's very clear to me that is a unanimous decision by the Council. Very clear. What is not clear is whether the Commission is evaluating possible sanctions that then are for the Council to approve and is already working on some of them, or just doing nothing, just waiting for the Council to say, yes, go ahead and start working on them. Thank you.
Your second one, and I just said, we are indeed looking into possible sanctions that would be proposed and then do need to go through the procedure. On the contacts, and what do we have anything more on that.
Thank you. I don't have any comment in particular to make on this issue. As I said, we maintain regular contact with Iranian authorities through the EU local presidency in Tehran, which is now exerted by Cyprus in the absence of an EU delegation. If we have any further information to add or to share with you, we will do it in due time. Thank you very much.
So we will follow up on your specific question about being in contact also with other Iranians in exile.
Of contact in Iran, but I'm talking about outside of Iran. So if you can just elaborate a little bit, not very much, just a tiny bit on outside of Iran. Thank you.
Once we have that information, we will indeed get back to you on that. And you were patient with a follow-up question. Go ahead, our guest today in the press room.
I've been here during the previous administration for 15 years. I was absent for the last couple of years, and I'm back here again. I heard many times your predecessor, Peter Stano, many times made a nice comment about the diplomacy is on the table. But my question is very concrete and clear. When it was about Venezuela, EU got engaged with the alternative in Venezuela. When it was about Ukraine, EU did the same. When the people are chanting, millions of people chanting a name, it's worth at least for the sake of Europe, for future of Europe, for future engagement of the Europe, to sit with this guy and see who is this guy and what he's representing. That's the first thing, and I think the question of other colleagues as well when it comes to Prince Reza Pahlavi. And second thing, which is not answered to my question, was we lost already in few battles to America, to Russia. Are we going to lose also in Iran geostrategically? Is a market of 80 plus million people, massive oil and gas reserve. It can be a good political and economical partner in future for Europe. Why we are not having any engagement with Iranian opposition during the democracy that we can have a good partnership? This is missing, and we're going to lose yet again.
So let's be very clear. It was not said at any moment from this podium that there was no contact with the Iranian members in exile. What we said is that on this, and before giving you any information which is not absolutely accurate, we really want to double check what is the status of any such contacts which are ongoing, which indeed would not be surprising because, as you said, this has also been the case in other situations. Also, I would disagree with your assessment, and precisely, and I reminded it, we've been, indeed, through diplomacy, we've been engaging with Iran for many, many years, and because we do give priority to diplomatic engagement, and this is also now our call to the Iranian leadership to listen to their people on the ground who are calling for change, and to listen to it. And that has been and remains our priority, to work through diplomacy. And it's on this basis also that we have been working over the years with Iran. So on this, there's not more that we will add now, but we will be coming back on your very specific question, which was also raised by the colleague there. Any different questions on Iran? Noureddin.
Nous avons les revendications légitimes.
Now, we have the legitimate claims of the Iranians. That's credible, that's legitimate, and they're on a massive scale. And also, we have the potential involvement of direct U.S. involvement, Israeli involvement in different ways. So, we've also heard of the Elon Musk's company putting forward the idea of using Starlink to help the Iranian people. So would the EU encourage such external intervention in the affairs of the Iranian people? Are there European companies capable of providing such possibilities of connection for the Iranian people, that they can remain connected So is the EU in favour of outside actors making their facilities available to those on the ground? The fundamental problem here is one of intervention by foreign powers in the states, in the affairs of a state that is sovereign. Thank you, Nordine. Now, I think some of what you said were personal opinions, so I won't get into those. Nonetheless, to respond to your point concerning foreign interference and involvement, our response, our policy has always been clear. Regime change is not part of the EU's policies. When it comes to support for civil society, you were referring in particular to some recent statements that have been made. Our support for the Iranian civil society is nothing new. We're determined to continue to use all the tools at our disposal that we have in our toolbox in order to support the aspirations of the Iranian people to ensure liberty and dignity. That's all I can say from this podium. Nuruddin, on your question regarding the involvement of private actors and companies, well, it's up to those companies to decide if they want to get involved and whether they want to get involved to help the Iranian people. Okay, other questions on foreign affairs? Just to be sure that we cover everything, please go ahead.
Hello, Umberto Bacchi from Agence France Presse. It's on Ukraine and more specifically French President Emmanuel Macron and more recently the Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni said that it's time for Europe to speak to Russia directly. Does the European Commission support such a dialogue? Do you have any idea? Is this idea being considered, being taken forward in any way? And maybe going too much ahead, but how these talks should take place, if anything. I think Meloni suggested the creation of a EU envoy for discussions with Russia. Is this something you are considering? Thank you.
Well, on that, as you know, we're working very, very hard for peace in Ukraine. Now, peace in Ukraine depends on one single person. That person is, as you know very well, President Putin. So obviously, at some point, there will have to be talks also with President Putin. And in the meantime, a lot of work is being done. Unfortunately, we're not seeing any signs by President Putin to be engaging in such talks. So we're not there yet. But at some point, we would hope, indeed, that there will be some such talks that will finally lead to peace in Ukraine. Still on Ukraine, Jorge.
Yes, on this issue that you just mentioned, Paula, at some point there will be talks, you said. Can you specify it a bit more? Because obviously this is a very important statement that you just made. Can you specify it a bit more? What conditions will you put for these talks to ever happen with Vladimir Putin? And when you say there will be talks, you mean talks between President Ursula von der Leyen and Vladimir Putin himself? Thank you.
Unfortunately, we are not there yet. It's been months that we're trying to see if there is finally a meeting with those directly concerned, and this is President Zelensky and President Trump, and so far this has not been possible. And this is not due to President Zelensky, who has very often said that he's ready for that. So, unfortunately, we are not there yet, so obviously I will also not speculate on the whens and the ifs and the whos. We wish we would be there, because peace in Ukraine depends on the one who actually broke with what was a peaceful country. Magnus.
Thank you, Paula. You just said that talks should happen with the people directly concerned, Zelensky and Donald Trump. Do you then imply that the Europeans are less concerned about this then?
And President Trump. They are They are the ones directly in war. And as you very much and very well know, obviously we are concerned also because it's also our security that is at stake, because because Ukraine is, and we see it as part of our Europe, and the US is doing all its efforts also to finally achieve peace, and that's, I don't need to add to what you know has been ongoing for many months, and with a lot of political involvement, investment in trying to get a peace plan. This is being discussed very intensively, has been discussed over the past weeks, and we hope that this will finally lead to results. And what I was saying is that it depends now really on President Trump. Other questions? I think on foreign affairs we are done, and we move to other topics before we conclude. And I see there in the back.
Yes, hi, thanks. This is Clara Grandelet for Asahi Shimbun. I have a question on digital policy. I want to know about the fact that there was this request for information sent to Shein in the end of November with a deadline for the end of December. I want to know if if an answer has been received from the company. I want to also have maybe an update on the case. Is the Commission still actively monitoring compliance so that Shein doesn't sell illegal products? Thanks.
Hello. 2 times yes. We have received the reply, we're assessing it, and the second time yes refers to the fact that we are actively monitoring Shein. Of course, we do not tolerate illegal products being sold in the EU, so we're actively monitoring indeed. So 2 times yes.
Let me just come back, because I have all my colleagues pointing to me having said that misspelled. So I meant indeed, and now I understand your follow-up question, President Putin at war with President Zelensky. Sorry for this, and all my colleagues are drawing my attention to it. So ratification made, indeed. Still on digital. Razia.
Thank you. I see that there was a written statement by the President, von der Leyen, and in the statement she says on the issue of Grok, she said, if they don't act, we will. So I just wanted to ask what the European Commission is prepared to do. What does act mean? Because the UK just maybe like half an hour ago announced that Ofcom has opened a probe, a formal investigation over Grok. And Elon Musk said critics of X are looking for any excuse for censorship. And I just wanted to know what the Commission had to say to that. Thank you.
Let me indeed also remind what President von der Leyen said just very recently about this topic. And she said in her words, I'm appalled that the tech platform is enabling users to digitally undress women and children online. It is unthinkable behavior, and the harm caused by these deepfakes is very real. We will not be outsourcing child protection and consent to Silicon Valley. If they don't act, we will. So what this means also is that it is now up to the company. And in this case, it's a company, when we're speaking about millions of users, it is up to this company to put to address this indeed appalling situation. Otherwise, indeed, we will act. And we will not at this stage go into what and in what form exactly will we act, but this is a very concrete call for the company which is responsible for these deepfakes to address it. But there was another sub-question to it that, Thomas, you may want to come.
There was another sub-question on the tweet and around censorship. I mean, drawing a parallel between freedom of speech and an AI tool that generates child sexual abuse material is dangerous nonsense. Especially when it comes from the owner of a tech company. And frankly speaking, I cannot even believe that we're speaking about this and engaging with this from the Commission's podium in 2026. You know, we're often accused of over-regulating. This type of output is precisely the reason why we have a legislation in place. And again, I mean, Paula has just said it, the President has said it, we're very clear. There are two options on the table. The preferred one, X fixes its own mess, like Paula just said, or we take the legislative steps that are foreseen in the legislation.
Yes, please.
Thank you. Samuel Stolton at Bloomberg News here. So just staying on the topic of Grok, one technical question, one broader question here. I wonder if the Commission would consider interim measures in the future under the DSA in order to deal with this issue urgently. And then perhaps a broader question that, generally speaking, the X features that have provoked the concern of EU regulators in Brussels are all features introduced, or if I'm not mistaken, by Elon Musk since his takeover of the platform. So aren't these DSA tension points actually indicative of the fact that Musk's vision of freedom of speech online differs entirely from the European Commission's vision? And therefore, I suppose, is it a case that under the DSA it's simply not possible for Elon Musk to run X as he so wishes? Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, in terms of vision, if the vision is that that output is freedom of speech, then we definitely don't have the same vision. That's absolutely not. On the interim measures, well, I mean, again, as Paula has said, we will not prejudge what we can do or cannot do. I mean, interim measures, I mean, Article 70 of the legislation is very clear. In exceptional circumstances, we could take, and when there is a serious damage or potential risk of serious damage for users, we can take proportionate and limited measures. Now, let's not go too far in the sense that the DSA has already proven that it's effective. We got replies from X. We have engagement with X. Measures were announced by the CEO himself, I mean by the owner of the company himself. We're now assessing all of this. This is what has already been done and will not go further. Now on, is Mr. Elon Musk free to run his company like he wants in the EU? Yes, of course. I mean, we have always said it. Everyone is welcome to offer its services in the EU, but compliance with our legislation is mandatory.
Other questions to Thomas? Stefan.
Yes, for Thomas, but different topic. The Commissioner Kubilius mentioned the idea of a European military force of 100,000 soldiers. Is this a proposal that you are preparing, or is it just a personal idea of the Commissioner? Thank you.
Thanks, Stefan. The Commissioner is inviting for a discussion and a reflection. Why? Because, I mean, he has, of course, identified, and the Commission has identified critical capability gaps in the European Union in the defence sector, also when it comes to troops. So this is just an invitation for a discussion. What do we do? Cannot we have more coordination at EU level? So it's an invitation for a discussion more than any proposal.
Yeah. And a question online from Julia. Now, Julia, your turn.
Yes, thank you so much. I have a question on the DSA flow. On Friday, Polish President vetoed the legislation to enforce the DSA. So I'm wondering if the Commission has a reaction to this. And could you please confirm whether Poland is the only member state to have not implemented this? Thank you.
Thank you. We indeed took note of the decision that was taken in Poland. I mean, let me recall from this podium that, of course, the harmonizing effect of the DSA to protect 450 million citizens across the European Union is very important. This is why we need empowered authorities at national level to be able to enforce the legislation at national level and to also protect Polish citizens. So we, of course, strongly encourage Poland and the remaining member states to empower their digital services coordinators. And let me recall that we have also recently referred Poland to the Court of Justice as part of the infringement proceeding.
Now we hit 1 hour ready. Any final question? No? Okay, then we wish you... we have a final question there. Is it Thomas or somebody else?
It's a question on energy and climate policy. So for Anna Kaiser, I presume.
And then we conclude. I'm well aware that there were more questions online and in the room, but time for us to conclude. But go ahead with your question on energy and climate.
So I've asked several questions recently about the EU's Arctic policy and the review that I see now is ongoing with the call for evidence. But in the Arctic policy from 2021, the EU issued a call for a moratorium on oil and gas exploration in the Arctic. And today, the Norwegian government announced that it will be reviewing its oil and gas policy in the coming year. And most likely that means considering the option to explore oil and gas in the Arctic areas. So I'm wondering if the EU Commission still stands by its call for a moratorium and if this will be subject to review in the upcoming Arctic policy.
Mentioned, and very rightly so, that we opened a consultation precisely on the Arctic policy, which will be reviewed. And at this stage, I cannot preclude or prejudge what will be the result, notably of the consultation in our revised Arctic policy. We'll have to wait a little bit for that. Okay. Very quickly, follow up.
Yes, just. My question about, does the EU still, the Commission still stand for its call for a moratorium on oil and gas exploration in the Arctic?
This will be part of the discussion, so I am not able to confirm or deny at this point in time.